Today, we will look at the events that took place in 2017 in the American state of Pennsylvania. 20-year-old Alina Sheykhet was a student at the University of Pittsburgh. On October 8, 2017, she stopped answering calls and texts. She was scheduled to meet her parents that morning, but neither her father nor her mother could reach her. They went to her home, and what they found there changed the lives of the Sheykhet family forever. Alina was born in Ivanovo, Russia, and her family moved to the United States when she was 3 years old. Alina was brilliantly talented. She loved singing, dancing, and acting. She touched the hearts of many with her passion and beauty on stage. Alina developed her passion for performing arts at a very early age. Her journey started at the European School of Rhythmic Gymnastics when she was 4 years old. At the age of 5, she was performing solo numbers in out-of-state competitions. In elementary school, she was a student of Tammy Lee's School of Dance, where she obtained starring roles performing her acrobatic dance numbers. In a short period of time, Alina learned dance styles and skills that would take years for most children to master. Because of her exceptional talent, she was privileged to perform in a group of much older, more experienced dancers. In 5th grade, Alina joined Karen Prunzik Broadway Dance Studio. She became adept at multiple styles of dance, including hip-hop, tap, and ballet. True to her Russian heritage, she even served as prima ballerina for the studio. She competed at Onstage New York and Access Broadway, and won multiple awards for her outstanding performances. Throughout the years, Alina also performed at several local Pittsburgh events, including Light Up Night, Macy's Christmas parades, and various events in Robinson Township, Kennywood, and Idlewild Park. Additionally, the confidence that she developed through dance allowed Alina to discover her talent as a singer. She brought audiences to tears with her beautiful renditions of many well-known songs, both on stage in front of an audience and at home with her family. When Alina was 14 years old, she suffered a severe knee injury during a ballet class and underwent a major surgery. After months of physical therapy, Alina received the heartbreaking news that she would not be able to dance competitively or recreationally again. Despite this major setback, she was committed to returning to the stage and was determined to find a way. While at Montour High School, Alina was a member of musical theater, through which she was able to safely exhibit her passion for dance. Alina returned to the stage as a gifted actress, dancer, vocalist, and comedian, shining her light and love on the audience. She starred in several musicals and plays, bringing tears, smiles, and much applause while on stage. Alina also was part of the chorus at Montour, and she performed at many events across the city and continued to shine her light and bring joy to all in attendance. Although Alina's injury prevented her from pursuing her passion as a dancer and performer, her treatment experience inspired her to pursue a career in the medical field. She wanted to help others who had suffered injuries that prevented them from pursuing their dreams. Alina decided that she wanted to become a doctor of physical therapy. Alina had a very close relationship with her parents. In a 2015 Facebook post to her father, she wrote, "Happy Father's Day to the greatest dad out there. Thank you for always being there for me and having my back no matter what. I couldn't get through one day without you. I love you so much, Dad." In another post that same year to her mother, she wrote, "Happy birthday to my gorgeous mother. I can't wait for another year of countless laughs and more memories. You are my best friend, and I love you with all my heart." Alina graduated from Montour High School in 2015 and spent the first 2 years of her college career at University of Pittsburgh, Greensburg. She lived in the Outdoor Adventure and Community Service Living Community during her time at Pitt Greensburg. In fact, she was the vice president of OACS during the spring 2017 semester. She loved participating in an organization that benefited animals and children. Again, Alina continued to shine her light, touching the lives of people and animals with her love and attention. Alina then transferred to the University of Pittsburgh's Oakland campus. She lived with her friends in an apartment and was prepared to dedicate herself to becoming a doctor of physical therapy. However, on October 8, 2017, Alina was senselessly and tragically killed at the young age of 20. Alina lived in this house with other students at the University of Pittsburgh. Her roommate, Zach Brandner, always remembered the night he last saw Alina alive. Returning home from a late shift at work, Zach and Alina took a Snapchat together at around midnight to poke fun at other students posting night-out selfies on Saturday night. Here's what Zach told reporters when they interviewed him. "We all said goodnight and said I love you like we did every night, and she went up to bed," Zach said. A couple minutes later, Alina texted me the picture we had just taken. That was the last I heard from her. The next morning, she was gone. Just over 8 hours later, Alina's mom, Ellie, and dad, Jan, came to pick up their daughter. They were due for a walk in the park for a breast cancer charity. In the interview, Zach talked about what exactly happened that morning. He said, "Her mom came to pick us up at 8:45 a.m. Her mom rings the doorbell and says, 'Is Alina not awake? She isn't answering my calls. Let's go wake her up.' I thought she slept through her alarm. Her dad was still in the car with their dog at this point. We went up and her mom started knocking on the door with no answer. This went on for 5 minutes and it started getting really loud. She started shaking the door. You could tell she was starting to get a bit scared, like this wasn't normal. The dog was barking uncontrollably. That's when Ellie called for her husband Jan, who came inside and broke down the door, and then they saw what was inside. At this point, I was halfway up the stairs and all I heard was screaming. Her parents were screaming at the top of their lungs saying, 'Alina's dead, Alina's dead.' It got hard to understand. They started speaking in Russian. It was horrible. They said it looked like her face had been cut off. Zach ran up and looked inside. He couldn't bear to look for more than a few seconds. I went into the room and it was horrifying. There are no words to describe what I saw. She was just laying there with her arms spread out. The whole side of her face was unrecognizable. You could barely recognize it was a face, it was so bashed in. She was laying in a pool of her own blood.
20-year-old female he believes to be unconscious, not breathing. Calls us, he is just extremely upset and repeating he can't look at her.
A siren pierced the morning silence, as if reminding us that somewhere nearby someone's life hung in the balance. When the ambulance pulled up to the house, the doctors rushed inside. Alina's frightened mother met them at the door. With trembling hands and tears in her eyes, she showed the way to the room where her daughter was lying on the floor. Unfortunately, the doctors had no choice but to state Alina's death. The house was cordoned off by the police. Police Chief Scott Schubert said in a statement, "We do not believe at this time that this was a random act of violence. There is no continued threat to Oakland residents and the university communities. However, releasing additional details at this time could be detrimental to the investigation. As with each homicide investigation, our primary interest is collecting sufficient evidence that can be successfully used in a court of law. The investigation is ongoing. I encourage anyone with information that could be helpful to call police headquarters and speak to a violent crime unit detective," Schubert said. The medical examiner ruled Sheykhet's cause of death a homicide and said the manner of death was sharp, blunt trauma of the head. In fact, police already had a suspect. Investigators believed that Alina's ex-boyfriend, 21-year-old Matthew Darby, had committed the crime. Alina Sheykhet met Matthew Darby while she was studying at the University of Pittsburgh, Greensburg. Darby played basketball while he was a sophomore at the University of Pittsburgh at Greensburg in 2015-16. Alina, who had broken up with Darby after she transferred campuses, reported him for breaking into her home on September 20th. She filed a police report to say, "Defendant climbed up the gutter on the side of the house and broke through the second-floor window of my home. He did this because I left him and stopped answering his phone calls." Describing prior incidents of abuse, she wrote, "Grabbing, pushing, emotional abuse, jealousy, controlling." Jan Sheykhet said he and his wife, Ellie, accompanied their daughter to court last week to obtain the PFA. "For the last couple of weeks she had told me she tried to stop talking to him," he said of Darby. "She disconnected his phone number, Facebook, and all that stuff. I heard his name, but I never met him personally." In that criminal case, Darby was released on $10,000 bail September 26th, the same day he was arrested on the trespassing charges. In an interview, Alina's roommate Zach recalled repeatedly worrying about Alina and Darby's relationship. "Halfway through sophomore year was when I started finding out that he was abusive," he said. In the time I knew them, around 3 years, there was a lot of fighting. I'm not just saying this because she was my best friend, but Alina was extremely loyal to him. She never cheated on him, unlike him. Zach described a moment last month when Darby stood outside their room, shouting at Alina. It went on for over 20 minutes, and he kept accusing her of cheating on him with this boy. Outside my window on the first floor, we heard Matthew screaming at Alina. She never did anything. This boy lives in North Carolina, but he was screaming at her. All she was saying was, "Matthew, please stop, stop." He was uncontrollable. Zach explains this is one of the many occasions when Darby would flip out for no reason. We would go out for pizza and everything would be fine, and then he would just turn on her. He would just go crazy for the littlest thing. Darby's demanding behavior, according to Zach, extended to her social media. If she liked a picture of a guy on Instagram, he would go and unlike it because he had her social media passwords, he said. This was before they broke up. She changed them when she broke up with him. He would never let her wear clothes that could be considered too sexy looking. He was extremely, extremely controlling. He was notorious for texting and calling, he added. Matthew would call her upwards of 20 times. If she didn't answer, he just kept on calling and it just wouldn't stop. She blocked his number after they broke up. It was after the breakup that Darby broke into their home on September 20th, according to the police report. Zach remembers that it was around 12:30 that night when he heard glass breaking outside. Thinking it was a bottle breaking at a party nearby, he texted his house group chat and put it out of his mind. Then he heard the sound of someone falling and then a shriek from upstairs. It was Alina screaming for help because Matthew Darby was in her room. At that point, we weren't sure what his intentions were, but now we think it was a failed attempt at murder. We caught him and got him out of her room. Then the police came and he was arrested. She was scared, you could tell, Zach said. She didn't feel safe at all. Call records from Alina's cell phone, which could not be located at the apartment when she was found, show that she received 5 calls that went unanswered from a phone number later found to be Darby's between 4:15 a.m. and 4:55 a.m. Sunday, police said. Alina's cell phone was last located near Irwin, where I-76 intersects Route 30. According to the criminal complaint, he was picked up by a vehicle belonging to a commercial car service at 4:21 a.m. The driver told police he drove Darby to Simple Street and Ward Street in Oakland, near Cable Place. He said Darby got out of the car and asked him to wait 10 minutes. 10 minutes later, the driver said Darby asked him to wait 10 additional minutes. Approximately 5 minutes after that, the driver received a call on his phone asking to wait another 10 minutes, but told police said he could not wait longer and left the area. Investigators collected surveillance footage they said shows Darby tossing items into a sewer near Semple Street near Alina's place. Pittsburgh Police Homicide Detective Edward Fallert said he and other officers found 2 knives and a hammer in the same sewer grate, the latter of which appeared to have hair and skin stuck to the claw portion. Based on the above, police requested a warrant for Darby's arrest. He is charged with criminal homicide, burglary, flight to avoid apprehension, theft by unlawful taking and possessing instruments of crime. A few days after Alina's death, Matthew Darby was arrested in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. According to Myrtle Beach police, a concerned citizen reported seeing a male tampering with a window at a residence. When officers arrived, they found a man matching the description. Through the course of their investigation, it was determined that the male suspect was Darby. Now, he has been charged with providing false information to police and loitering for the incident in South Carolina. Each of the 2 new charges carry a monetary penalty and up to 30 days in jail. A South Carolina judge denied bond during the hearing. The judge declared Darby a potential flight risk due to the outstanding warrant in Pennsylvania. The judge explained Darby's right to an extradition hearing, or that he could waive that right. Darby then said he wanted his lawyer. He also said he wanted his lawyer when asked to give a plea on the charges in South Carolina. Alina's friends, many of them Pitt students, packed the courtroom along with her family. Many brought signs promoting domestic violence awareness and Alina's Law, a bill working its way through the state legislature that would allow judges to require electronic tracking of domestic abusers deemed to pose a high risk. Friends wore purple shirts with Alina's photo on them with the words "Our Russian Princess" written in Russian. The back said, "Love shouldn't hurt." The judge held all charges against Darby for trial, including charges of homicide, flight, burglary, theft, trespassing, and possessing an instrument of crime. Prosecutors introduced evidence that Darby had spent time on the Duquesne University campus the night of October 7th and into the morning hours of October 8th, where he had an interaction with University police officer Raymond Marr. Darby asked directions to Broadier Hall, Marr said. Security cameras captured Darby at various points across campus, including in the student union, which Marr allowed Darby to enter in order to charge his cell phone. He said Darby acted nervous and smelled vaguely of alcohol. One photo introduced by prosecutors shows a man they say is Darby wearing a striped shirt with an embroidered Miller Beer logo on it standing in an elevator on campus that night. That shirt was among Darby's possessions when he was arrested days later, police said. Prosecutors say evidence they introduced Friday, Jan 19, 2018, shows Matthew Darby on an elevator at Duquesne University in the hours before police say he killed his ex-girlfriend, Alina Sheykhet, in her Oakland home. Darby's attorney, David Schrager, disputes that the footage shows Darby. Hours later, shortly after 4 a.m., Darby called for an Uber, which took him from Broadier Hall to a street adjacent to Alina's home, the driver testified. Schrager said anyone using Darby's Uber account could have been the passenger. Darby later fled the Pittsburgh area, but police arrested him in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, 3 days after Alina's death. A photo taken by Pittsburgh homicide detectives shows 2 knives in a sewer grate in Oakland. The knives were collected as evidence, and suspect Matthew Darby is accused of tossing the knives as he left the home of his ex-girlfriend, where police say he stabbed and beat her to death. Darby's attorney, David Schrager, said that with a low threshold for evidence in preliminary hearings, he was not surprised by the outcome. "We have a lot of discovery we have to do, a lot of evidence gathering we have to do," he said. "We're going to get to tell our side of the story at a later time." He maintained Darby's innocence. "There is no forensic evidence, there is no testimonial evidence," he said. "All we have is a lot of circumstantial evidence, and that provides a maybe." Prosecutors said they would seek the death penalty against Darby, asserting 4 necessary aggravating factors, including that he was the subject of a PFA brought by the victim, that she was a prosecution witness against him, and that he had a history of felony convictions using violence or the threat of violence. Darby agreed to plead guilty to first-degree murder, which carries a mandatory life sentence in exchange for removing the possibility of a death penalty. Alina Sheykhet, a bright, vivacious college student, aspired to be a physical therapist and work with young children. It was her dream, her father Jan Sheykhet said, and she worked so hard, she was the best person in the world. "I lost my beautiful princess," he said, crying. "I don't know what else to say." He described his daughter as well-liked and personable with a love of dancing and singing. "She made everyone happy," he said. "She had such a bright future." "He has taken Alina from us in an unimaginable way," Jan Sheykhet said of Darby. "He has stolen so much from us, including a future with our daughter." With her daughter gone, there would be no graduation, no wedding dress, no children, and no family holidays, Ellie Sheykhet said. "My daughter died," she said. "It's a very short phrase, but it's strong enough to shock and paralyze every single cell of my body when I have to pronounce that phrase." She said her mouth was not made for those words because her brain was not made to comprehend them. She described how she sat with her daughter in the courthouse after Darby was charged with breaking into her home. She requested and received a protection from abuse order. She said her daughter still cared for the man she also feared. She wanted to help him. Ellie Sheykhet said her daughter told her she didn't want that PFA and she didn't want him to go to jail. She wanted to help him and protect him. She told her mother she wanted him to leave her alone. She asked Darby if destroying her daughter brought him happiness. She told him that he failed. Clad in a red Allegheny County jail jumpsuit with a white long-sleeved shirt underneath, Darby spoke only to answer questions from Judge Manning. Asked why he was pleading guilty, he answered, "Because I am guilty." Darby was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, the mandatory sentence for first-degree murder. Darby also pleaded guilty to burglary, theft, trespassing, and possessing an instrument of crime in connection with Alina Sheykhet's killing. In a separate case in which he broke into Alina's apartment 2 weeks before the killing, Darby pleaded guilty to trespassing. However, a year later and with new counsel, Joseph Hudak, Darby filed a post-conviction petition arguing ineffective assistance of counsel. In his filings, Darby said his attorney at the time, Thomas Farrell, failed to explain or do a proper analysis of risk on the case. In its response, the Allegheny County District Attorney's Office said Darby's claims would not succeed, but conceded a hearing on the matter might be necessary. The decision is not based on any potential merit for Darby's claim, but instead on precedent known as the coordinate jurisdiction rule, which provides that judges in the same jurisdiction should not overrule each other. Darby's new attorney, Joseph Hudak, stated, "This is the first step in taking back Darby's life sentence," he said. "I think Darby has been totally mischaracterized, and I believe Darby is guilty at the most of third-degree murder, and a jury might find him guilty of voluntary manslaughter." Hudak said Darby's lawyer should not have led him to a first-degree murder plea. "I don't believe the evidence ever supported a death penalty verdict," Hudak said, "and there was so much mitigation, I don't think he would have received the death penalty anyway." Darby has not given up trying to get out of prison, but so far all his attempts have failed to bring him the desired result. He is currently serving his life sentence. Alina was an exceptional young woman. She radiated love, life, and energy. She had a compassionate spirit that made everyone around her feel special. She had a remarkable smile that brightened every room she entered. She had a contagious laugh that made everyone feel like they were in on the joke. She was not just alive, she was living. Although her family misses her desperately, the Sheykhets are proud of the legacy that Alina has left and the light she has brought into this world.